been playing Dean for like 3 years now, 4 years. I'm trying to remember. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 4 years now, I believe.
And is there a new signature coming out, or?
Yes, that guitar is actually one of my signature models. Came out. Been working on it for the last few years, developing different body shapes and stuff for the last, since I pretty much rejoined with Jackson. My signature guitar has been like in the making for like about like 3 years, I believe. And the model that's out now just came out. It got debuted at the NAMM show in January this year, and it's out now. It's my signature model. Designed my own body, modified made my own King V, so to say, and it comes in 6 and 7 string versions. It's got 3 different trans red, trans black, and just gloss black, which is the one I have here with me now. It comes in the 3 different colors for both designs. It's the exact same one I play live. It's the only version out at the moment is the USA version. So it's pricey, but it's made from the Jackson Custom Shop, and they're amazing quality. So it's definitely worth the money if you want the guitar. It's definitely you're gonna get what you pay for. So it's amazing guitar, and hopefully down the road be able to get like the import Japanese version of the same model. So it's a little bit if you can't afford the USA one, you'll have something that's a little bit more affordable. So hopefully that'll be down the road. But it's still it's only been out for I guess now like 9 months or so. So it's still a pretty now that the record's coming out, we're starting to kind of really promote it more since we're actually active again, being touring and everything.
24.
Yes.
And what about the pickups?
I use it comes with the Seymour Duncan Blackouts pickups. I use, so great pickups, and I don't think any other Jackson comes with blackouts. So usually the King V guitars come with the Seymour Duncan JB4s, I believe. All the ones I've gotten before had those. So it's definitely got a different, instead of EMG route or passive pickups, you got the Seymour Duncan Blackouts, Floyd Rose, and it's pretty simple as far as electronics. It's just a toggle switch and a volume knob. So it's pretty bare bones, just straight metal guitar.
You said you used it on the record, right?
Yes, I used a prototype that I had for. I believe I used it for maybe 7 or 8 months of touring on In Waves, the last kind of half of the tour cycle, which is what my guitars now are based off that particular guitar. And I used it on the record because I was very familiar with it touring, and it sounded great. And I made some modifications with some stuff that improved the tone that I knew was going to sound better than any of my other guitars in the studio.
Only guitar you used on the record?
Yeah, it's the only guitar I used. I used it for everything, so it just was, some records they would be like, oh, we gotta have a bunch of different kind of guitars, but this one was just like, this is one that sounds the best. I don't really do a lot of sonically different sounding shit, so it's like rip a solo and it's gonna sound like a solo. So I used to use that one, and that guitar has been retired because it's beat the crap. Touring took its toll, so I leave that guy at home to preserve it.
And what about the amp? I've read an interview and you say that you use the Fracton XFX.
No, we've never used that for recording. We only used it live during the in-wave cycle, and the record we tracked with a bunch of gear, like 5150, Maxon overdrive into a Mesa 412 with a vintage 30s. We also used like a PB3120 and a 6534 Plus for solos. But we tracked it with that. We always record a DI just in case, which everyone usually does. And once we started mixing the record, and Colin had mixed the drums, gotten all the samples, and got the drums to be really fat and big, metal drums, and then mixing the bass and altering that. Once we started mixing, the guitar tone was missing some. It didn't have as much, I guess, bottom end to it. It was kind of compared to the other instruments when they were mixed, the guitar sounded a little thin, a little thinner than we wanted them to. So we ended up, the actual guitar tone on the record was we reamped with a Kemper profiler, and it's a profile of pretty much the same amp that we tracked with, but it's just profiled with some, I guess, emphasizing different tonal aspects of, like when you hear like the profile of the amp, it's very low end with a lot of gain. And then obviously we reamped with that, and then it went through like different preamps and EQs to get it to sit in the mix with all the other instruments. And we used that, and it sounds amazing. And then from that, we ended up switching to using Kemper profilers live.
Really?
And we used the same profile, but we obviously had to do a lot of EQing to get it to where it would sit, would work best live. So it sounds amazing. It's a great, if people really don't know what a Kemper amp profile is, I'd say go do some research and check it out, because it's a pretty amazing piece of gear.
There's a lot of guys that are kind of scared by something like that, the old school guitar player that just want this amp that sound one way, like, I don't know, Marshall. First amp.
There's always people that are going to be very particular about their gear. We've always been, embrace technology, and the fact with using, say, like we use the Axe Effects and now using the Kemper profile, it's like my whole rig I go on tour with is a 4-space rack that I can bring on an airplane, and if we have to fly to a gig in Indonesia or something, I don't have to rent gear and get gear that you don't know when the last time someone fixed it, or if it's going to blow up, or it sounds like crap, which we've had before, having to get rental gear that is not up to par with what we would normally play with. So having something, technology, the advanced technology of what a Kemper can do, and take the exact profile and sound of an amp that sounds exactly how you want it at that moment in time, be able to bring that everywhere you go. You can bring and have the sound quality for your concerts that your fans hear exactly every time, no matter where you play. If you have to fly 3,000 miles to a show, you got everything you need to play that show and sound exactly how you would if you were playing on a normal tour. So it's definitely made our shows better, sound better with any kind of situation that we have to do shows in. And it's, people that are, if people still want to lug around 412s, breaking their back, carrying all this heavy gear, whatever floats their boat of what makes them comfortable to play. You want to be comfortable with what you play and how you sound. So there's always people that are their comfort zone is having stacks and their tube heads. But to me, hearing a tube head and then hearing the Kemper, it's unless I think it would be a lot of people, if you didn't tell them which one it was, probably 9 out of 10 times people probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. That's how good it is. But people are just so scared of just the fact that it's like this little piece of gear mimicking something that they find like
breaks
it's, yeah. So it's all people just. I think more people will eventually, I guess, grow into it and be comfortable with it. But there's still people that are just very. It's kind of hard to break them out of their comfort zone. But
talking about guitar styles, how do you describe the difference between you and Matt? And there's a lot of twin guitar things going on. Trivium.
Yeah, it's we've kind of coined some terms for ourselves over doing all these interviews, talking about solo stylings and stuff. And I call my soloing tasteful shred. So I do fast stuff, but it's not just constant. It's broken up by harmonized guitar lines and melody lines that connect more intricate, faster parts. And most of the time, the faster parts I typically do, depending on the song, are usually in short bursts for connecting melodic ideas. So I call it tasteful shred. And then Matt came up with a term for his solos called dad solos, which is kind of broken down into, it's kind of the scales and the amount of notes and all that stuff. It's kind of what your dad would listen to, based off of like the more old school, like Jimmy Page style of playing, with more pentatonic based, more about bends, and he has a lot of like repeating melodic lines, kind of like in a way like a guitar harmony section where it's harmonized, sounds really big, but it's also very singy and in a more simplistic way. So call them dad solos. So, and I think now even more than ever, over the last 2 albums specifically, I think we've really kind of separated our styles to make them more identifiable with how we play and how we approach guitar parts. That you can, even if we're playing over the same part, you can definitely hear the stylistic difference of how we approach playing, and also each person's playing kind of works well, because they kind of work off each other in a way that it doesn't sound like the same person playing. You can definitely hear where I end and that begins is like a new starting point that complements each other very well.
So my last question, have you got any tip to young guitar players or readers to kind of improve what they're doing, or some, I don't know, warm-up routines you do or something like that?
It's all, usually starting off, if you're very, I guess, in the early stages of playing, thing that really helped me pique my interest in wanting to play more was, instead of doing the typical just learning like the open chords and you're just kind of like playing, nothing that's musical, like, or they show you how to play a song you really don't give a shit about. Like, you're like, I don't want to learn how to play that, I like metal. So like my first guitar lesson, the first thing, or the first piece of music I ever learned was the opening riff, really the opening riff and maybe like the verse or something. The first couple riffs that I actually learned how to play on guitar that I would practice over and over again to get my chops up was I learned Seek and Destroy by Metallica. And to be able to just sit there, pick up a guitar so early into starting to play and be able to play something that of a band I like, of a song I really like, to be able to play it, you got just the fact that you could actually play that piece of music was very exciting and kept you engaged. Like if I was learning how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, I probably wouldn't have picked up the guitar again because it just doesn't interest me. So I think with anyone that's learning how to play the guitar and to really kind of keep you motivated and interested, it's just learn something simple that is a piece of music that you really enjoy listening to, and I think that'll keep people engaged and wanting to learn more, and eventually you keep learning harder pieces of music that help develop your skill. And also, I guess if you've already been playing for a while, just definitely when you're learning more difficult techniques or passages or exercises, definitely to make sure you develop your left and right hand at the same time, that they're both working together. We always emphasize the key of practicing with a metronome, being very locked in, get your timing and your rhythm down, and then always slowly increase your tempo, and then eventually your hands will be really locked in. So when you play those fast stuff, you can hear all the notes, there's no noise, there's no sloppiness. You can really, build everything up to be very clean and precise picking, and your hands are really locked in, and everything's smooth. You want to have, like, if you're playing like fast passages or upscales, you want everything to sound very clean and smooth. There's no glitches and time shakes and stuff like that. So definitely utilize a metronome, and also another great way to develop your skills is to start jamming with other guitar players, and also jamming with like a drummer. Just even if you sound like shit, learn covers and try to jam, because that also, playing off a drummer is a great way, a fun way, if you're not really interested in playing with a metronome, to learn timing and being able to play rhythms in time. Playing with a drummer is another great way to make it a fun way of learning and developing techniques as well.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much.